Well, good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather, bringing you the latest long-range forecast update. A lot to talk about tonight. Been talking for a good little while now about this potential for a sort of a mid-November pattern flip, if you will. We've been abnormally warm over, a really good chunk of the country now, most of the nation, pretty much all fall long, but things are about to change. And been talking about this for quite a while, and just to start off here, if you're following me on YouTube watching this, be sure you follow me on Twitter. You can go to twitter.com. I'm at Southern INWX. I talk a lot about these things as well. In fact, here's just an example that I talked about this mid-November pattern change. This goes back all the way to November 1, but if I went down further, you'd actually see a lot more here as well. I've discussed this mid-pattern change for quite a while. You can find me on Facebook as well. Southern Indiana Weather there, facebook.com/Southern Indiana Weather. So be sure to follow me. I do a lot more on the text than I do on the video. You'll be able to get a lot more little details about things that I'm thinking, and a lot of just good details here. So be sure to follow me there at Southern INWX on Twitter. All right, so here's the idea of what we've been talking about. We've been pretty toasty across much of the nation here, and especially here where I'm forecasting primarily for in southern Indiana. The 80s are gone. Here in the southern Indiana area, we started off November 1st and 2nd with record high temperatures in the mid 80s. That's long gone. We've been in the 50s and 60s primarily the past week or so. Now we're going to be talking about much cooler temperatures. In fact, I'm talking about temperatures, could be high temperatures here in southern Indiana into the 40s for our highs and even 30s for our highs later this weekend. So let's go through that. Let's see what's going on. First off, here is the national map across the area here. We got pretty much a dry front that's going to move through tonight. Really no consequence to that. We might see a sprinkle if we are lucky out of it. I'm not sure that we're going to get even that, to be completely honest. That moves through the way, and we're going to warm up later this week. Here's that high pressure ridge starting to move back in here, and that'll warm us up to temperatures maybe even possibly hitting 70 on Friday. There is a distinct possibility, but certainly some upper 60s are going to be found with this. But keep an eye on this storm system that's developing out here in the plains. This is overnight hours Wednesday night into Thursday. And watch how this is going to develop. It looks like it's a pretty doozy of a snowstorm going to develop here for the northern plains, specifically areas here, North Dakota, South Dakota, places up here in Minnesota. Really going to get hammered with some rain there as the system tightens up. That's not going to affect us with the snow, but here in southern Indiana, yeah, there's a little bit of a front that moves through with it on Friday night into Saturday. And so there's some moisture that'll come with it. We need some rain around here. We're pretty dry. I don't see a ton of rain out of this, but possibly a little bit, maybe about a 30 to 40% chance of rain at this point. For our winter weather, though, the bigger story is certainly going to be this snowstorm that's going to be down into the Great Plains. And of course, if you like winter weather, that's good, because what's going to do is lay a foundation for some colder air to tap into, so that the deeper the troughs go over time, the more cold air they'll have to work with. You can think that for that snowpack. How much snow are we talking there? It could be pretty significant, as we'll see in a minute. As I put this into motion and continue on, then high pressure takes over for a while, but I want you to notice the later we get into the month, we go into an active pattern here again. So we have had a pretty dull pattern overall, where we just haven't had a whole lot going on over the heartland of the nation here. Now, the Northeast has certainly had some troughs to work with, but for the most part, and most of us just really haven't had that much of anything to work with. It's been pretty dull weather. It's been pretty toasty, pretty warm. That's about it. Last half of November is going to be much different than the first half. We're going to have a pretty active storm system coming through. So there was that first one that rolled through this weekend that I showed you. Here's another storm system that's set to roll through here. And this is right around Tuesday the 22nd. So this is right before Thanksgiving. You've got a system that's set to move through here. In fact, notice this very clearly. There could be a chance, the modeling is picking up maybe some wet snow with this from, say, Indianapolis in Cincinnati and points to the north. Most of southern Indiana just rain with this on this particular model run, but the idea is it is certainly there. So some something that we'll keep an eye on. It's going to be a cold rain if the way things look. That finally moves through, and it looks like you got a few days where you might have some rain chances. Here's Thanksgiving Day itself. The storm system pushing off to the east there, high pressure settling in here into the Midwest. But then right behind it, you've got this next system developing. For this would be Black Friday here, the 25th. And so you've got this deepening system here, and watch what it does. It goes right through the heart of southern Indiana on this model run. Again, remember this far out, we're talking an hour 288 here. Nothing is set in stone. There will be some adjustments, just almost guaranteed with this. But you got the strong system set to move through here, and watch what it does as it goes off to the east here. It wraps around into kind of a nor'easter potentially for them, possibly anyway. This particular run wants to push it out to sea rather than up the coast like some have in the past. That gave, if we go back here, just sort of the hints of maybe some wet snowflakes mixing in on the backside of the system as it moved through. But then watch this next one. Right on its heels, just a couple of days later, there's another system, and this one is indicating a rain-snow scenario possibly for us. This would be Tuesday night the 29th into Wednesday the 30th here as this moves into the area, and this is as far out as the model sees, and it's got kind of some rain-snow setup in the area for us. So certainly the pattern is changing. We're going to go into a much more wintry feel as we head into the latter half of November. It's definitely going to feel a lot different than the first half did. Those record highs in the 80s for us here in the heartland, well, they're going to be gone. That's the bottom story. And that's the bottom line on that. And you notice there's more stuff heading here as you get in. More disturbances going to come through as we roll into the opening days of December as well. So a much more active pattern is developing from the way things look. How much snow would we be talking about here? Well, if this particular model was right, and keep in mind, we're at hour 384 out here. Do not take this as me forecasting snow. This is just me showing you what one model run has done here. And you got the idea that with that later storm, there could be some accumulating snow around the area. One of the first few times that we have seen this shown up in the modeling this year, but there is some hints of that pretty significant storm just off to our west there. Is that believable? I wouldn't necessarily say that that much at this point. If I kind of put this into motion, no snow to worry about anytime soon, but there's that system rolling through over the weekend, probably staying out of our area, maybe just giving just some flurries to maybe some lake effect snow showers up here. Then as the systems start to stack upon each other, as you get these multiple systems coming through, it's later in the month, down the last closing days, that we would potentially get our snow rolling through here. And again, this is only one model run, so take this with an extreme amount of salt. Temperatures behind this, though, going to be pretty cold. 50s and 60s this week, maybe some 70s as we had the last couple of days here on possibly Friday being a pretty warm day here. But behind that, as you go into Saturday morning, you're getting temperatures pretty cool here. And watch this. Saturday afternoon, high temperatures only in the low to mid 40s here across southwest Indiana, maybe up to near 50 here as you get towards Louisville. So it's going to be a pretty cold day. And then Sunday, not much better here. You're talking temperatures pretty cold on Saturday. On Sunday morning here as well. By Sunday morning, here you go. You got temperatures here well below freezing again. You may get into the upper 20s kind of situation once again here. And look at this. By the time you rebound on Sunday afternoon, it's forecasting temperatures here. Only 39 in Evansville, 37 in Louisville, 35 as far north as Indy. So you're talking about temperatures in the mid to upper 30s for our high temperature on Sunday, if this modeling is right. So that's a big change, a very big change compared to where we have certainly been recently here. And then, of course, this is going to continue on for a while. Low temperatures that Monday morning are going to be here into the mid to upper 20s around the area. So certainly a hard freeze and some frost probably going on with that again. And we don't rebound a whole lot. We see some very cold temperatures as we go throughout the week, possibly warming up just right before Thanksgiving here, again with temperatures into the upper 50s to near 60 across southern Indiana. But then again, you go through here later on and you see, those 60s and 70s are gone, replaced more frequently, much more frequently by 30s and 40s and maybe a few 50s as we close out the month. So certainly a much colder temperature regime is shaping up as we head towards the month, and that's really the bottom line of what we're going to see with this. The indices, by the way, are showing this as well. If we look at our friend, the good old Arctic oscillation, there it is going negative again. Of course, it was negative all of October and a good chunk here in November before it's retreated back into positive. Remember, a negative Arctic oscillation is Arctic air from Canada on the move, available to be funnel down in here. Problem is, we just couldn't get it funneled down into here. But the AO going negative again, whenever you've got this, the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, this is blocking around Greenland. This slows systems down and make those troughs tend to dig in a little deeper over us. With that going in the negative, that could indicate that blocking pattern. We didn't have that in October and November here. And so even though we had a negative AO, we didn't have a way to get that cold air that was available to come down. We do now. That's what the modeling is saying. The PNA, pretty positive right now, and it's forecast to stay neutral to positive as we head throughout the time. And of course, one of the biggest changes that's going to be is we've had a positive EPO here for a while, but watch this. The EPO index, the East Pacific Oscillation, going negative. That's another indicator that's key to being able to get that winter kind of weather coming upon us again. So all this to say, the indices are even lining up here saying that the modeling could be right into this kind of an active period and a colder kind of period with this as well. You can see it here as well if we just take a look at your temperature anomalies. Pretty toasty here, but it gets replaced pretty quickly by, you see the battle here over the next few days with above or below normal temperatures. Eventually it gets replaced on much of the eastern portion of the country here, getting replaced here with these majorly cold temperatures around the area. And there may be a day or so that we see some warmth come in here, but it doesn't last long because by the end of the month again, here we are consistently seeing a lot more blues than we are the reds. And so that's an indication here that a pattern change is mostly going to happen, because if we were to just take this back in time to sort of where we are today, this is indicative of where we have been really for most of the past few months, where you've only got a pocket or two of cooler than normal weather and most of the nation is above normal. That is certainly going to change. By the way, just really quickly, La Nina has been officially declared now. La Nina, of course, is going to have an impact on our winter weather. It is officially a weak La Nina at this point by NOAA, and you can see it here. Remember, they do not use the daily index as I'm pointing here. They're using different indices of this. They've found enough to declare it an official La Nina. They don't forecast it to last real long, but it's going to last through the winter and certainly have an impact on our weather. You can see there it is on the ocean charts down here. Remember, La Nina is an abnormal cooling of the water here in the equatorial Pacific, and we're specifically looking at this region over here. Another thing, though, that will affect our winter, you notice this big blob of cold water taking over. The brutal cold winters that we have seen recently have had all of this completely above normal. And we've got a lot of cold water taking in, but that's because of that active storm path. There's a lot of warm water still subsurface that may well up, so I wouldn't look for this necessarily to stay this cold all winter long. I think there could be some recovery come to this, but this is a big question mark right now. If anything, what it's showing to us is a classic warm PDO look, where you've got this warm ring of abnormal temperatures here around a cold tongue coming in. And you know, if we can keep that through the winter, what we could see is that taking over as a stronger driver than what La Nina is from time to time. That promotes troughing in the east here and ridging in the west, and could deliver us some colder shots this winter. So something that we're going to have to see. I discuss this in my winter outlook. If you want to go to that, you can discuss this a little bit more. But you do see some big changes taking place up here. Nonetheless, with this, certainly that colder tongue getting more prominent in here. The big questions, can the PDO really recover? And how big of an effect is it going to have on us this winter? My apologies on that, folks. WPC wanted to take over. No, thank you there. One other thing I want to deal with just really quickly here. The heavy snowstorm, especially for those of you on YouTube that are watching here around the plains. And I know I have people from all over the country watch me here on YouTube. Pretty heavy snowstorm coming for you guys this weekend. Take this seriously. Again, this far out, you can't know these exact, these exact amounts. This is one model run off of this. This is pretty hefty. Look at Fargo, 25.6 inches of snow there around Fargo. Good grief. 26.7 up here. And again, this is a pretty massive snowstorm. Even for us, though, in southern Indiana, if you're saying, man, I wish I could have that kind of a snow around here. I hear you. I like snow too. This is a good sign to see, though, because the more snow buildup that we have over the northern plains, whenever these troughs start to dig in, the more of a cold air source that they'll be able to have to pull that cold air down toward us to work with. So this is a good sign and a key sign. We've got to get the snow buildup over here into southern Canada and into the northern plains. And if we back this out across the nation, it's a pretty significant swath of snow that's going to come with this. That's going to have big indications. If we can keep that cool weather around, if we can keep this heavy snowpack on here, it'll have bigger implications to us as we be in November and open December. There's possibility we could see some snow with this. Probably not going to see any kind of snow like this anytime soon around here where I'm forecasting at in southern Indiana, but this is key for later in December and January to be able to get that, is laying the snow packed down. So it's an encouraging sign. So for all you winter lovers, the pieces of the puzzle are starting to hit together here, and we are starting to see these things lock into place where we could have a pretty cold pattern here where it's going to be more active and we could see those snow events. Don't see anything major for us in southern Indiana here yet, but of course we are eyeing that end of the month storm system here that could bring us some snow. With that, we'll have to see. It's a coin toss at this point. It's pretty far away, but again, we got a couple of weeks to narrow those out. But the fact is, the pattern is changing enough that we can at least see these kinds of hints on the modeling, and that to me is encouraging. The mid-November pattern flip that I have discussed for a while, it looks like it's coming true, so bundle up this weekend and get ready. For many of you, it's going to be a real shock to your system to have highs in the 40s. And some of you that haven't turned the heat on yet, you're going to need it this weekend, the way things look.